Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the second episode of Rabbit Hole Podcast. I'm your host, William Crandall, and joined with me, as always, my friends Kyle Gilroy, Nathan Cubes, and Ray McClintock. How's everyone doing?
Excellent.
Super solid.
Oh, blessed.
Great. You're blessed, Kyle? I like to hear blessed. Why are you so blessed today?
No, I'm blessed, man. I got to conquer
wow.
one of my deepest fears today, which is standing up for myself.
At work?
No, it's personal.
Okay.
It's personal. But it was just something that came across from somebody else that wasn't true. And I had to stand up for myself and actually, kind of get the truth out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do it in such a way where you're not breaking arms and stuff.
Oh, I did it I probably did it in the best way I could have. Because you don't bash the person that spread the misinformation. You just understand that people are going to talk, and if they talk and it doesn't exactly complement your life, you just got to take a step back and be like, okay, I've done it before too. I apologize for this whole situation.
Awesome.
No worries, man. No worries. But yeah, there's a lot going on in the world right now. I turn on to the news every day, and every day I'm seeing awful videos and awful news stories, and I don't know, I didn't mean to dive into this right away, but I don't know about you all, but my heart kind of hurts.
Yeah, same.
Everything I'm seeing on the TV right now.
For viewers / listeners who are hearing this is about a week or 2 weeks. George Floyd was murdered by the police.
Yeah.
All of our major cities are protesting. I was actually a part of one of those protests, which I'm not gonna lie, man. I became pretty emotional a couple of times. I mean, it's weird, you see the signs, I can't breathe. The first time you say that out loud in a protest and you realize, what am I saying and why am I saying it? It's because this is what people say when they're being smothered to death on a street. It's a really chilling and heartbreaking thing.
Yeah.
But out of it has come a positive change. You mind me launching into this, Will?
Yeah, you can launch right into it if you want.
Well, so here's what happened. I work at a university. Sally Romero, a close coworker of ours, who works in the Multicultural Center at Western, she said, hey, there's this 30-day justice challenge. And she posted this link. And I looked at it, and I was like, at the time, I was like, man, I don't know. This is, there's a lot that I'm planning around COVID for, the university and the stuff going on. What am I going to do? Why would I do this, right? And then, of course, it ends up, I'm consuming a huge amount of information right now. And one of the things that I watched was an interview between Conan O'Brien and an incredible reporter for CNN called Van Jones. I don't know if you guys know Van Jones, but he's the man. And one of the things that he said that really resonated with me is that he was saying, as a black person, especially when you're in university settings and stuff, when you're the minority, one of the things that gets really old is always having to educate the people around you on black history and on books about black issues, and you have to be the system expert of everything that's black. And I heard this a lot from my friends in the black community, that this whole thing, one of the emotions that they're feeling is that it's exhausting, that they feel tired, right? And the reason it's exhausting is because and then I think of my friend Liz, who is the one that actually organized the protest, right? And I mean, it's sort of like throwing yourself a birthday party, right? You're going to organize the protest for all these, people to come to be sort of educated on this issue that affects you directly. And so I thought, if there's one thing that I can do and that I can show solidarity with my friends and really my community who are black, is I can educate myself, and this 30-day justice challenge seems like a way to do that. And then I got thinking, because we already are doing this rabbit hole, you know, I was like, what if my friends on the rabbit hole want to do it, you know? And this is such an interesting forum because we're all these white guys, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have like and I think it's kind of cool that we're actually deliberately not inviting the token black guy on to say, what do you think, token black guy? We have a chance to have a conversation about this in a unique way. And so anyway, I wanted to pose it to you guys. And what do you guys saw the link? What do you guys think about doing the 30-day justice challenge?
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely down. And one of the things tying off of that, or I guess bouncing off of that, not tying off of that, is a question that you asked last week, Nathan. You know, is it why do we matter in today's era of like everyone trying to do a podcast, everyone giving their video, you know, Snapchat like recordings on YouTube and stuff? Like, why do we matter? And it is a bit narcissistic, but I really do think that our views are like grounded in solid virtues, morals. We all have good values, and we are representative, not of the minority, right? And so as the majority, it's important that we are sharing our views, because I think silence, I saw a sign at the protest, I was there with Nathan, and it says, white silence is violence. And I was like, dang, you know? And so that's where I see this podcast going, not even going, not going, but why I think we matter in general. It's just, I think we really do have we have good life experiences, maybe not good, bad life experiences, but that provide us with good views on things. And I think we need to be vocal, you know, maybe you can't get to a protest, but we can post this video, maybe share it with a couple of people, you know. And one thing I've been doing is really trying to just have conversations with, like, you know, some of my acquaintances who are Trump supporters. And every time I talk to my family members, it's like, you know, I go down the rabbit hole with them, you know, because it's like you have to. So anyway, sorry.
No, you're
yes,
fine.
Nathan, I agree.
That's a quintessential rabbit hole answer.
Yes, that's a Ray answer right there.
But I definitely agree, Nathan. I want to echo off something that you're saying is, you know, something that we can do in this time is just educate ourselves. Because the reason I want to enforce this is because I actually want to challenge something you said, Ray, which is I sometimes agree and sometimes disagree with that white silence is violence. But everything is on a case-by-case basis. Everybody is different. I totally understand what that means, because it isn't fair for us as white people to just reap the reward of privilege without at least acknowledging it. Like, at the very least, that's all you can do. But, you know, for me, a lot of people know my past. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm in a high-risk group during COVID, social distancing. I will not be going to any protest. My silence, I don't want to be misconstrued as violence. I want it to be like I am just trying to protect myself. So I probably won't be going to any close quarters protests. But I think this 30-day challenge is a great opportunity to educate myself and dive down that rabbit hole of the things that I think I know, but I don't understand. Because as a white man, I'll never understand. Like, I know I will never understand 400 years of slavery and oppression. I won't. Like, and it would be foolish of me to even pretend that I could understand. The best I could do is empathize by saying, you know, I can feel you in a sense that my heart also hurts for where this country is at right now. I want us to all bind by, like, we want to get our country back on the right track. And also my long ADHD version of, yes, I am down for this and totally down for this challenge.
One of the things too is that when something, well, I do expect to have good discussion on stuff too, that does something sound right or wrong? Like, for instance, one of the challenges that I have sometimes is when I hear the term systemic racism. Racism, I'm all for combating, right? But one of the challenges that I have, and I hope I can learn more about in the next 30 days, is systemic what we mean. when I think of the systems that we have in place, you know, if I have systemic anything, but you being a cancer survivor, you'd understand this, right? If you have systemic cancer, you can refer to the system. And you can say, and here's where in that system it exists. It exists at this cell or this spot in your body. But when you look at the systems that we have in place, there's actually a lot of systems that try to prevent or even counteract racism written into the laws, written into the actual systems.
Yeah.
The question becomes, is it system that we're talking about, or is it an individual? That's not the word. I don't mean a few bad apples. Is it something deeper? Is it something like the collective unconscious racism, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I can show you all kinds of laws on the books that favor underrepresented populations in our country, that allow them to have, like, to try to get ahead in business practices. If you look at the stuff that's written, that's in the system, right? There's actually a lot in there that tries to correct this stuff. So it keeps coming back to not a few bad apples, but to like gangs within, you know, within government that are doing crazy stuff, in my mind. So that's one of those things that I hope to learn more about. And so as we do this, I think that it'll be helpful if we actually reveal also how this looks from our angle. And another one that I think is loaded is, a lot of times we talk about white privilege as if this is a provable fact. I believe in privilege, and in some cases and in some areas, I think white privilege is very much a thing. But I am, if we really want to talk about what is like the major issue, I think there's like classism going on in our country. And, you know, I wonder how much. So anyway, there's things here that I have to educate myself on. There's things that I have to learn. But what is key about this moment is that we are able to talk about race. We're able to talk about what we're seeing, because so often, and I don't know if you guys feel this, but as a white man, I don't feel like I'm allowed to talk about this. Like, it's the weirdest thing. And I'm in a customer service industry, and you know, we'll have people on our campus, and we really want people who are black to feel comfortable on our campus, for instance, right?
Yeah.
But you can't like address that directly and say, hey, black people, I really hope that you feel comfortable here and know that we all love and support you. And that's one of the things that's really beautiful about this moment, is I can overtly state, hey, black people, I love you. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing for me.
So I'm gonna take this. I know you guys like philosophy, so I'm gonna jump into this.
Lay it on.
And this is what I think about, and this is what I've always been told. My dad was a significant influence on my life when it came to counteracting racism. And he said, son, we all bleed red. And oops, sorry about that. That was bad. That was bad. Anyway, so he said, we all bleed red, so why hate each other? He's like, at the end of the day, and what I took that as, I was like, imagine being born blind. Imagine living your entire life not knowing what color you were, not knowing the kind of beautiful scenery that's around in the world, and being told by other people what type of race you are. And I feel like that's kind of the system that's integrated today, is that we choose to tell each other what colors we are, or we're white, we're black, we're Asian, we're Hispanic, anything like that. And imagine just living life not knowing what color you are or what color everything else is. Imagine how bland, but how fruitful your life would be knowing that color doesn't matter. Until you finally get to open your eyes and you understand that we're all human beings. And that actually racism shouldn't exist, because race is totally an impossible term. Because as a race, we're all human. There shouldn't be these differences, and differences make us great, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, we're all humans. We're not monkeys. We're not any slang term you could use for any other person on the face of the planet. And this really got me, and I posted this on Snapchat saying how beautiful the world is with color. And it's totally one of my deepest, and it causes me a lot of pain that I don't show openly, because I had to deal with a very, very segregated population being in the military and even in high school. That just really hurts deep in my soul, knowing that I can't talk to other people about color because they've just been forced into this just belief that they're different for a reason that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. Internally, we are all built just like everybody else, and we got to show that more. And we got to tell each other that we're all in this together. And I'm not going to go to protests because I'm like the biggest, even though I was in the military for 5 years, I just don't believe in violence. And also standing up for what's right has a certain way you can live the rest of your life doing it, and you're going to affect people no matter what you do. And you're entitled, like people who know me probably know a bunch of other people, and that's probably millions of people that have all been affected by just knowing the people around me. And if you could start that by just changing the internal structure of how you feel about other people, you can change the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I'm totally down to do this 30-day challenge. And it's something I deeply believe in. And I hope some sort of philosophy makes sense, but.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, dude. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. You know, so you guys are on the same page. What I'm looking at here is day one. We're going to read a brief called White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack.
Mm-hmm.
And then sit in the discomfort of confronting our own privilege. Consider not only the privilege you have, but how it affects your life. That I think is going to be a strong one for me, because I am definitely, in my mind, privileged in different ways, though. But I'll get into that later. So day two, we would sign the petitions for justice for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, and Ahmaud Arbery, and others. And we would also donate to a local bail fund, which I'll have to think on that. There's a lot of important things to donate to right now. Yeah. And I would like to donate to something race related. I don't know if it's going to be my local bail fund, though. We definitely need to make sure we're registered to vote or confirm we are already registered. I know I'm registered, but we got to do that. And then we'll call our senators and urge them to back the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, which is already passed, I believe. So maybe we can call our senators to back something else up and start practicing activism in some meaningful way. On day three, we're going to watch.
Hey, Nathan, I was going to say, so for the sake of time, I'll post the link to that article in the description to this video, and this way everybody can see the challenges by day and what we'll be doing. And then like the video before, we'll say what we're talking about next week or something like that. But
that sounds good.
Just see we have somebody waiting for us in the lobby. Like Ray, did you give John our
I gave John our link.
Oh, yeah. So we got
this is the first time I'll meet John, so I'm excited.
I honestly didn't even know about this, so we're gonna have a surprise guest. I'm excited for it. Let's see what happens.
Surprise!
I just hit admit.
He's late. We should give him crap about that.
There he is.
Hey.
There he is. The man, the myth, the legend.
Lethal butts. That's Stubblefield backwards, by the way.
It's what?
Stubblefield backwards is the lethal butts.
I know that because in college, my freshman year, someone who is a really fun person named Ryan, he said, "Oh, Stubblefield, your last name spelled backwards is the lethal butts." And then he called me the butt, which was really weird and random and has no other meaning other than
boy, that's exactly how you want to start your freshman year, is nicknames.
Right. Also, hello.
My friend Robinson was Nosnibber, but I think Deleteful Butts might actually have it.
Nosnibber.
Oh, that's
Well,
great.
At least it's
Wow.
legal.
All right, let me say hi to John real quick since I don't know him. But
Hello.
I'm Kyle.
Hello, Kyle.
Nice to meet you, man.
Hi, John. We've
Yeah.
never met before. I took your job. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. We all see how that went for me. But anyway, um, this is actually kind of cool. So I won't, John, I'll let you do an introduction about yourself. But as I understand, you began the Rabbit Hole, as it will previously known as Voice of the Valley at Western Colorado University, which was a radio show that we have stolen from you and adapted to a podcast. But would you like to tell us something about yourself and where that came from and what's going on?
Yeah, so I currently live in Bellingham, Washington. So that's where I am currently living.
We are all over the country. This is awesome. I'm in Connecticut.
Oh, perfect. Connecticut, I learned today, is a hard state for me to spell because I can't remember where all of the C's and the P's go.
Yeah. I was born here and I can barely spell it. Thank God for it's really helpful that my iPhone has memorized the words that I type. So I type CON. Did you mean Connecticut? We'll help you out. Don't worry. I got you.
So I live in Bellingham, Washington right now. I worked with Ray and with Nathan for 3 years. Ray and I think it was initially Ray and I were just kind of talking about how we have some good deep conversations and the purpose of meaningful conversations and the benefit of having those. And then Ray asked to do a radio show, and I was very reluctant because I like things that are scripted and planned out. So I struggled with the adaptability piece. But we went with it and had a good time for, I don't know, like a year and a half or so.
Yeah.
Voice of the Valley. It took a while to get that name, but we eventually came up with it. And I think it's perfect. And then now we are on the Rabbit Hole, which I would also like to say, not to be confused with the New York Times podcast called The Rabbit Hole. I don't know if anyone knew that, but
yeah. So I intentionally named the podcast like Rabbit Hole, not The Rabbit Hole, because The Rabbit Hole is it's not that original as far as a podcast. Like, let's just be honest. But I went with the Facebook logic, not the Facebook. It's Facebook. So we're not The Rabbit Hole. We're Rabbit Hole. There we go.
I like it.
I just selfless plug for my genius there.
Yeah. So John, we were just about to dive. Sally has she sent out an email about a 30-day challenge, kind of starting to unpack like privilege and all sorts of stuff. And so today, and I wonder if we could share it in the chat here.
I can. You want me to?
Yeah, actually, here, I got it right.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We're going to look at just the first day in unpacking white privilege. And I know, I mean, you were super active when you were here, just with respect to social justice. And I definitely consider you highly knowledgeable in this area. John was the one who started the day of service here at Western, which is now like a local like phenomenon. So yeah, he's our resident expert, for lack of better words. But no, I think John has some really great balancing ideas for people of our extroverted nature. Sometimes it's like I'm like over here, and then John would come in with like the voice of reason and rationale. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So
Pragmatism.
Yeah, exactly. But no, Nathan, I wanted to jump in too. You know, you were mentioning the systematic oppression that we have in the United States, and I think Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, is going to absolutely melt your mind. I'm not sure if any of you have read it. Have any of you read it?
It's part of the challenge. It's part of, I think there's 4 days dedicated to it because it's a whole book. So I think there's like 4 or 5 days dedicated to just reading that book as part of the challenge.
Yeah, so she came to my undergraduate institution actually back in, I say it was like 2010 or something like that, and I got to see her speak. And it was in like this. It was when her book first came out, and I bought a copy there. And it is. I was trying to hunt down a copy because I wanted to give it to Nathan, but I'm pretty bad about that. I lend out books, and they just. I might as well give them away as gifts, you know. It's
Oh,
like
same here.
I texted one of my old students, Morgan, and I was like, "Hey, do you have my copy of the New Jim Crow?" And she's like, "I do not." And I was like, "It's gone." So, but yeah, no, I think the New Jim Crow is going to truly enlighten you in a lot of aspects, in terms of the systemic nature of things and how we have these systems since slavery, right? So slavery was abolished. I don't want to jump the gun. Slavery was abolished, but these systems of control and oppression have stayed. It's just the name has switched. Like slavery never ended, and that way of looking down on others never left. It was just replaced with something else. And sometimes to higher degrees that were less blatant and in your face. They were very cunning and foxy in terms of how they, you know, wove themselves into like our daily lives. So, I mean, honestly, police is one of them. So that's slave, like they're back in the South. The police were initially around to hunt down slaves that had run away. And then when slavery went away, we kept police around in that respect. And so it is pretty mind blowing. I mean, it really, really opens your eyes to some stuff. And actually, there's a really powerful video I wanted to share with you guys if you have a chance.
Today.
I know. I saw this on Trevor Noah though, and I think this video captured I feel like the emotions of Black people right now very, very well. Do you mind if I show it to you?
What, like now?
Yeah, it's a short little clip.
Okay.
Anyone opposed?
Will it play on the podcast? Okay.
Will it? I don't know how to. I honestly do not know how to share my share screen.
Yeah, just let me share my screen.
I got this locked right now. Maybe let's do it next time, Ray.
Yeah.
Okay, I have it pulled up and everything right now.
Yeah, but I don't think screen sharing is on.
Yeah. Let's not do
okay.
a screen here. Let's not do a screen.
That's a rabbit hole.
We can. Do you want to talk about it, and I can post the link to it in the description for this video?
It is much better viewed than like reiterated via me.
Okay. Viewers, we're definitely professionals. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, we're really good at this. We've
been doing it for years.
Weeks.
Well, I think the whole video thing is what gets us. You know what I mean? And I do think we need to be careful about like, hey, let me share my screen. You know, because that's not the point of it, is us just sitting around and like viewing a screen. But it is a seriously.
Like
I'm gonna send the link to you guys.
Even the thing about policing, like that's such an amazing thing right now because, well, you know who I think are some of the biggest heroes in the U.S. right now are Black police officers because they show something. They are the physical embodiment of you can love both. Yeah, right now sometimes there's a sentiment that you can't love one and love the other. Like if you're on the other side of the blue line, as the police call it, then you do not have any business being at protests or reflecting on protests. And then on the other side, you have this thing of like, if you're not a racist, then you need to understand that all police officers need to be, fired, and we just need to completely rethink everything. I mean, it's funny because from my standpoint, I'm a director of security at a university, and we started this year, as in like this past September, this school year, worrying about what we always worry about, which is active shootings at a university. And when you're in normal times, that's a really big worry for a whole lot of folks. And during those times, nobody's saying we need less police, And then something like this happens, which it happens way too frequently, and it is completely colored the perception of what law enforcement is for people of color, understandably, and now even for us. But what's weird is like for someone like me who is like worked directly with the police in my area, and I can only speak to my own experience, but someone like me who's worked with so many police in my area and seen just the only racism I've ever seen is directed to them, you know, because they're big white guys with shaved heads. They've been called all number of things because of the way they look, but it's never been the other way around. And I'm not saying that we should feel bad for these guys because they've had racism targeted at them. But I'm saying it is hard for me to hear good friends of mine who have protected my own life and responded to injustices in my own community, to hear these people referred to as pigs because of what other people in other areas have done. Again, not excusing those, but it's such a complex ball of wax. But going back to my original point, it's why Black police officers right now are such powerful symbols, because they show that it's not an either or. It's not like the stormtroopers versus the rebels, or blue versus red, or this isn't two teams fighting at the Super Bowl. This isn't a total bifurcation. This is a complex merging of just two really complex issues at once, at least two.
Yeah.
So I got a tough question for y'all.
Love tough.
And I'd like to get to know John a little bit more too. But I would like to ask each of you a time where you felt like you had white privilege. And that's a harder question than most people think, because you're kind of, like I said earlier, blinded.
Yeah, and this is probably just a microcosm of what we'll dive into at the next episode, because the first challenge is literally the article, and I'm sorry, the essay Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack, and just sitting in your privilege. But I would say the most recent example I had is with, like Kyle and I actually were talking about this right before everyone else logged into the Zoom. Was, I lost my job recently. Most people, when they lose their job, they're in pretty dire straits. They're wondering where their next meal is going to come from, how they're going to pay the bills and everything like that. I lost my job and I moved to a beach house. And that is like a privilege I have, because, you know what, for better or for worse, obviously, but, I'll just say it. And it's because my father passed away recently and I inherited some money. Like that is, I'll just be real. Like that's how it happened for me. So the plan was I lost my job and I was going to move in with him and spend some time with him, because he was diagnosed with late stage cancer. Unfortunately, he passed away a day or two before I got here. So I'm staying in the house, taking care of everything. My sister and I got our inheritance, and I have been here for 3 months and haven't had to pay for a single bill. Dad's bank account has still been self-funding it. We're using the money to make some renovations and selling off other properties. And I've been here for 3 months and I have not struggled once. And that thought did not hit me until today. It was like, if I was Black and I lost my job, I'd probably be in dire straits. And, to sit here and that really made me realize, is like, I am privileged because my father worked his ass off his entire life and accumulated wealth. And, unfortunately I wasn't with him for his last days. And, I wish I didn't inherit the money. I wish I was in the situation with him here, but that is just the reality. Is the privilege I have is I lost my job and I almost have it better than when I was employed. I moved to a beach house. I'm living next to my sister, who I haven't seen in years. I'm not worried about any bills. And I kind of have been told by my sister, it's like, you can kind of do whatever you want now. And I really, like I said, and I'm rambling at this point because I didn't plan on talking about it, but it really I had to take a big step back today and realize like where I am and what's going on because of the color of my skin. And that's real.
So one quick thing, I just have to just challenge this a little bit, because I deal with the same thing, William. What you just described is economic privilege. And economic privilege is something that I can name, unfortunately, way too many examples of economic privilege, of where I have been straight up bailed out of life sometimes by my family when I was younger. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of times economic privilege, and to Kyle's point, where can I really imagine white privilege, where literally the color of my skin, and that's a much harder one to name, because economic privilege is a very real thing, and you just nailed the head on that. But I'm not sure, or I'm not convinced from where I'm sitting, that what you just described is an example of white privilege.
Okay.
And I'm not doing that just to be confrontational or weird. It's because it helps to frame what's going on in our country. Is that the income disparities is a huge issue right now.
Yeah.
And I have been in a lot of multicultural environments, and the only way that I can, and I'm sorry if it seems like I'm hijacking the conversation, I'll shut up after this, I promise. But the only time that I've ever felt white privilege is one way. And it's that I remember this time when I was walking through a mall, and I was like this big, angry Navy sailor, and this family's walking toward me, and they crossed the mall to get away from me because of just sort of the vibes I put out, right? And I did this reflecting, and I was like, wow, it's because, what am I doing? I'm walking around scowling, acting like I'm all tough and blah, blah, blah. Here I am being the man. And I made a family feel so uncomfortable around me and it made me want to smile more. It made me want to change. Now, if I were a black man, would I have come to the same conclusion? By being white, one thing that I do have is I know that I'm like the control group, right? I know they didn't cross because I was a black man. I know that it wasn't a racial sentiment. It was because of what I was doing. And that is one of the biggest pieces of actual white privilege I can point to in my own life, whereas I always know I'm the baseline. So when I'm trying to figure out how my behavior is being read by other people, I always know it. Well, it's not because of my skin color, obviously. I must just be being a jerk, or they must actually genuinely like me, or whatever it is, right? That's never a factor in my decision making. Sorry, that's less I'll say on that.
No, that's fine. I appreciate you challenging me. I hadn't thought about it that way. I'll think of something different. I'll see if I can come up with a different answer. But if anyone else wants to jump in, go for it.
Yeah. So recently I had all my bonsai plants stolen, which was a real bummer. And I have a lot of time to look for them. And so I hopped on the bike, and I literally, was combing the neighborhoods. I mean, I was going down the front of one street, and then down the alleyway, and doing this systematic search of all these houses. And I was snooping in backyards. I definitely was. I mean, I'm looking for my sage in a certain pot. I'm looking for Ava's cactus. And as I was riding, I was like, if I wasn't a white male doing this, I mean, there was already a lady who was kind of sketched out because she saw me ride back and forth about 4 times. And there was another family that was kind of watching me, but I never had the cops called on me, and even if the cops did get called on me, I could just be like, oh, hey, yeah, had my bonsai plant stolen. I filed a police report a couple weeks ago. I'm just kind of looking for things. Sorry if I was being intrusive. And there really wouldn't be the repercussion too of having the police called on me, right? I have no fear of losing my life. I mean, that's in my mind, that is white privilege. I have kind of this that teenage invulnerability feeling, where it's like, it's not gonna happen to me. I'm good, and that would be my most recent example of white privilege. The second one I can think of, was at this march in Gunnison. In front of me, four steps ahead, is a dude with a loaded .308 on his back. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? That, literally, you bring that to this protest, that is white privilege. The fact that you feel comfortable with all these police around to march with a loaded rifle on your back, that is white privilege, 100%. So 2 examples. at least I think so.
Okay. John?
Yeah, something I'm thinking of is a couple years ago, so this wasn't super recent, but best example I can think of is I went to New York City and I was asking for directions, and I was on the bus, so not the subway, but a bus, and I remember talking to the bus driver and asking for directions because I didn't have a smartphone back then, and he talked me through different things. And then I sat down, and then I heard other people ask kind of similar questions, and I just remember the reaction of them asking those questions was much less. It felt much more rushed in terms of like it being short and just wanting the conversation to end. Kind of like that hint of aggression. And those other people had darker skin. I can't remember exact specifics about how many, but that was just kind of a, hey, I was basically asking that same question, and I felt like I got some good like customer service. They're asking very similar questions like, why is that?
Okay. So thanks, John. Thank you all, actually. One of the most significant memories that I have, I was standing watch with a fellow Navy personnel, who happened to be black, and I could tell something was wrong immediately. Like, first time I stepped on watch with him, he just kind of looked down at the ground, and I asked him, I was like, hey, what's wrong? And he was like, people feel more comfortable that I'm standing. Oh gosh, I'm terrible at this. But
Hi, iPhone.
but yeah, it's iPhone. But also, he looked at me straight in the face and he was like, hey, people feel more comfortable that you're around. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he was like, take a second and look what we're both wearing. Both wearing bulletproof vests. I have an M16 and an M9. He has an M9. And we all have the same duty belt and everything. And he's like, but when I'm on watch with somebody else who's black, I get quicker people to run by me. I get less conversation. And it's mostly just standing here in my own thoughts. And he was like, imagine if I could have the same independence that you have, to not have to worry about the color of my skin deterring these people away, even though we're wearing the same exact thing and we're doing the same job for a country that prides itself on equality and freedom and to express yourself however you want. And that really hit me hard because that's the first time that I've ever that was one of the first times I asked what was bothering somebody of a different color. And I was just blown away by just the fact that he said, basically in the terms that they're tired of living underneath our roof. They feel like they're not as independent of a people because even on a smaller scale that they are being, a minority, it's tough to imagine that they get the bad rap even though they have a smaller population, but do the same shit as everybody else. Sorry for cursing. I know Ray did it too, but
I don't know, it just slips out.
Rays of judgment.
But it was ridiculous how much serious emotion I felt from this guy who was literally telling me. He was like, this is how I feel about you. And there was no hate involved. There was no discontent between either of us. He literally poured out his heart and said, I'm tired of living underneath this roof that's white America or the white world. And I could totally just see the pain in his eyes and just look at him and how he didn't feel at home, even though we were in the same position. We were doing the same thing. And that just drives me crazy that people have to deal with that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And you guys were all right. Ray, I've made the same thing. I've driven around like aimlessly, like looking for something that may have been mine, or I felt it. And I just felt that inner person in me say, there's no way somebody else could get away with this if they were Hispanic or Asian or anything, because they're going to be looked at like they're below us. And that crap drives me crazy. From that moment, I've gotten so many things out of the military that have just really provided kind of a backbone that I have, that I could stand up for my fellow people in general. That all that was raised was hate, and you see it on a daily basis. And it's up to us, especially in the times we are, to stand up for each other. Like, regardless, they do that. We all are people. We all do the same things. We all try to make the world a better place. And just because of the color of your skin, that shouldn't make any difference on anything. And the fact that I'm a white man and serious, I feel like I'm not different from anybody else. But also the fact of the matter being, society chooses to put us at the top. And it's time for us to literally band together and be like, hey, this is not right. We need to force that opinion, because it's the strongest opinion out there, that we just need to come together as a human, as the human race.
Yeah.
And sorry if I went a little too long. It's just,
awesome.
This stuff drives me nuts.
And I would say that, society hasn't put us on top at all. We've protected our position there as white people.
Yeah, we've
always.
That's a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
That's way
you know
better.
what I mean? Yeah, no, and I'm right there with you. I think, unfortunately, I think racism, tribalism is deeply ingrained in our human psyche. Yeah. But if we are to evolve to the next stage of success as a species, we have to start to use our cognitive powers to overcome these biases, and to overcome this prejudice. Because if you have a portion of society not, contributing at its max efficiency, that's a problem. I mean, we're losing some serious contributions to humanity, and that's and I think one super quick, and then I'm done, and then I know Will has something to say. Take a look at race riots in the past and the narrative and the messages around them. I think it's actually it's haunting how similar the rhetoric and dialogue was. I mean, going back all the way to 1905, there was a riot. And shit, even, what's really mind-blowing is go back a couple years ago when Eric Gardner was killed. Watch those videos. If you close your eyes and you didn't know any better, it's the same conversation we're having right now. So my challenge for today, not to you in particular, but just to our, our country, in our world, is why this time? What makes this time different than all those other times? Why is this incident different than the last 100 years of protests and civil rights movement? And that's really what I've been wrestling with. And on a positive note, I have not ever seen an international kind of wave like we are seeing right now. From Hong Kong all the way to London, they were pulling down slavery statues. So there is an aspect of me that's like, okay, I am emboldened right now. Like, this feels different than past iterations. And that's it. Yeah, that's the sad part, is when it feels like you're in the Matrix, and it's like, your predecessors have done this before, and we're just walking the same path. It's just a circular track, and it's like, we can do better than that. We so can. So anyway.
Not gonna lie, I totally forgot what I was. You were just,
Sorry, my bad, man.
I loved that dialogue.
Story of my life.
Seriously, especially with this show, man.
Welcome to the rabbit hole.
We get so into something, and then our minds are just like, well, forget what I was gonna say. Let's see what this guy has to say. But real quick, I wanted to talk about something that I saw today, and then with the last 20 minutes that we got left, maybe go into some rabbit hole conversations, what we've done with the last week, as we usually do with this podcast. But I saw something today that I thought was kind of weird at first, but then I realized this is actually major change. Paramount is canceling Cops.
Wow.
The show Cops has been on for 33 years is no more.
33.
33. Yeah.
Wow.
If I can find the article, I'll post it in here. But yeah, they're no longer going to air Cops, which and it's really interesting also that you bring up The Matrix, Ray. So deep rabbit hole I'm about to go on to. When I was in college, I learned about something called cultivation theory. And cultivation theory basically is that our worldview and how we interact with others is shaped by past experiences in relations to like the media. So like if you're going to be that kind of person that watches a lot of episodes in CSI or a lot of crime dramas, then you probably think that everything that happens on those movies and television show is actually how it happens. Or you read all these articles and you watch all these TV shows that are meant to be fiction, but they're so prevalent. And usually, like whenever, and you know what's even crazier when I mention this stuff, like you say these things, like you mentioned these shows, and usually like the typical criminal pops up in our head because of what is always portrayed in those TV shows, which that has systemically influenced, I think, how we view some populations. Because, oh, well, if it's always on this TV show that they're the criminal, then maybe they are the criminal. But no, that's just the drama for ratings. Our worldview is shaped by that. And I think Cops has been a major influence on that in the recent decades. And so now, because by getting rid of that, there's time to change the narrative and change our cultural mind view. What do you all think about that?
Oh yeah, before I forget, because I'm good at that too. Right?
Oh God, yeah.
what Ray said was the most genius thing that I was almost there, and he just, seriously, Ray, thank you. Because seriously, we have protected it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that is so right. That's the point I was trying to allude to. And I'm so glad, and this is why I love, I don't know, Ray, I have mad respect for you because of just simple comments like that just kind of expand my thought process. And I was just thinking, I'm like, man, how many times have I even said, and you almost say it out loud, like it's speaking so clearly to you, that you're just like, I'm white. And you just have that feeling of what you said earlier, that we are protected by just continuing to just give ourselves kind of credit for it without even saying it. Because you're just doing things for the purpose of protecting that. And it's time. It's seriously time. And Ray, I appreciate that comment so much.
The content of our character, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hey, a quick thing. I'm going to have to get off here soon. But just to be clear, I'm planning on doing the first week's worth of the 30-day challenge between now and the next time that I see you all.
Okay.
And John, I hope you're on here.
We all didn't really discuss when we're going to start. I was probably going to start tomorrow. I mean, I got nothing else going on. Tomorrow. So I'll probably start my 30 days tomorrow. They're really easy. And again, I'll post that article in the description to this video. It has the links to all the TED Talks it wants you to watch. It has the links to all the essays and articles it wants you to read. It's very, very helpful on how to point you in the right direction to get it done. Very user-friendly, which is why I think it's going to be really easy for us to find what we need to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Good to see you, Nathan.
See you, man.
Bye, Nate.
Bye.
I keep missing the leave meeting button.
But yeah, I would still love to get your guys' opinions on if you think this, not airing Cops anymore is going to be like a game changer, or if it's going to motivate other similar shows. Like I was thinking there's another show that's like Live PD that does the exact same thing.
Yeah, like
Cops,
PD, yeah.
but it's
College
night
PD.
and live.
Yeah.
Did you say College PD?
There is one. It's College PD.
Oh, I didn't know that. So I think it's going to start a trend of those similar shows being changed in some way.
Cool. Well, I'll just do a quick one while you guys are thinking. I think it's definitely a point in the right direction. Just because actually cops are protection, but they're also not as protected as most.
Yeah.
So by showing the vulnerability, it kind of allows people to see them more as humans, you know, and to be like taking a show like that off the air is actually probably pretty significant to some people, because they're like, these are real people. These are, you know, I don't know how Cops is actually made, you know, I don't know if it's actual like, or it's just kind of reality TV, but one of the things is, if you take that off, people are so like intertwined with social media and just media in general, that's going to create a stir. And it's also going to allow people to think deeper about the process we're trying to make, because this is something that has been on for 33 years. It's a significant thing. My mom watched Cops, you know, growing up, so I saw her watch Cops, and even looking at it and looking at some of the episodes, you can't help but to think, wow, some of these times that it's aired on television, that racism that these other people see is actually happening, but you're so blind to it. It's almost crazy. And I want people to actually see that as a significant change.
No, definitely. And I like the point you brought up about reality TV. Just me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of reality TV in any form. I don't see the value in it personally. But except for Jersey Shore, I was into that in college. But anyway.
Oh, seriously.
There's something that Cops has always done that I never really agreed with, is it really does make a mockery of the quote unquote criminals or whoever they're arresting. Like, sure, you know, sometimes it seems like they're in a funny situation. You know, there's somebody who's high off their ass on some drug and they're making a fool of themselves, blah, blah, blah. But you don't know that person's backstory. You don't know what mental health issues they're dealing with. Like, it really does make it okay to say, oh, they're criminals. They're going to be on TV. We'll laugh at them. Ha, ha, ha. And I think that fuels into this, like, issue that's going on right now, is that, like, oh, they're just criminals. They're on TV. It's funny. It's reality TV. So I think hopefully by eliminating that show, it kind of also changes the mindset that we have, and maybe even bring up the, you know, how do we build the community? How do we address the mental health going on? Like, a lot of this stuff before I dive deep into that rabbit hole. I saw, Ray, you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah. Well, and John, John will do this. He'll just sit and observe for the whole show.
But I do.
I know he has gems up in there. I know he's taking
Sasha's
notes
on my
too.
lap, by the way.
Oh, were you taking notes too?
No, I'm betting Sasha.
Oh, gotcha. I thought you were taking notes.
Don't listen to him. He's totally taking notes.
I can.
No, no.
Notebook.
No, I saw you holding a pen. I was like, he's taking notes.
Yeah. Come prepared. Come ready.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to add anything, John, or you?
I'll let John have the last word.
Yeah. I mean, something I'm thinking of is, I don't know if I've ever seen a full episode of Cops, but I'm, you know, familiar with it from a distance. And I think even just that base understanding of what the show is, I think that indicates how much it perpetuates different stereotypes and different issues that are portrayed in this comedic way, even if it's not really a comedy show, but it's honestly just making fun of people. And I think having shows like that perpetuate stereotypes. So if we remove some of those things that perpetuate stereotypes, and we can instead replace it with some positive things to encourage, like what you were saying, Will, about mental health, or just encourage anything else, encourage us to actually look at our identities. I think that would be powerful. I was also thinking with your earlier comment, Ray, about white people of privilege are basically writing history. And I was listening to a podcast about the Equal Rights Amendment and the history of that. And something that was interesting was, I'm forgetting all of the details, but basically in the 1920s, with the women's suffrage movement, a lot of the leaders of that movement, even though we can look back and see the main historical documents as white women leading that, a lot of the leaders who have been erased from the history were Black and brown and trans women, and they have not been written because the history was actually written from the white perspective, and their voices have been sadly ignored. And even if the people who made great progress still had some racist attitudes. So I think that is an example that shows your point.
Oh, totally.
Definitely.
And jumping back to cops real quick too, before I forget, two things with this.
For sure.
I think another example of white privilege is watching cops and enjoying it. Right?
Oh, wow.
I wonder what I would be really curious as to what the data is behind viewership on, like, if it's on Hulu, Netflix, or something like that. If I was a betting man, I would put money on the fact that it's predominantly white.
Wow. That's pretty profound. Because I've never watched Cops and had a negative thought. I've always just like, it's reality TV. This is funny. Look at this guy acting a fool. I can only imagine a community that's like, why are you laughing at this? This shit happens in our community.
Yeah, this is our life.
Oh, that's
and it's no
just
joke.
what I was thinking. Oh,
yeah.
gosh.
Wow. You're dropping
second,
knowledge bombs today, Ray. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I
you
had
are.
my caffeine before I came on.
I elected with tea.
I had my they're really good. The second reason I think why I believe Cops is a bad thing, not a bad thing, but I think it.
Are you talking about the TV show?
The TV show, yeah,
Okay.
Sorry. Why it perpetuates negativity in society. So my family definitely used to watch it. We go to karate on Saturday mornings, we grab our Slurpees, and then spaghetti and Cops at night. And when my little sister was born, she's 9 years younger than me. We just, I was like, okay, we're watching Cops. Like, that's just what we're doing. She became paranoid of the police. So she would hear sirens and equate it to the violence she saw on TV.
Wow.
And the negativities she saw on TV. And I always thought that was so powerful to me, because you had this uncorrupted mind. She was young enough that she was reacting kind of rawly to what she was seeing on TV. And it was one of like paranoia, where it's like, it became this thing where it's like she heard sirens and she was like, oh, it's the cops, and she was getting ready to watch like a chase or like someone get tased or something like that. And so I can only imagine that someone, kind of going back to my last point, from a different ethnic background could have those same, feelings of like, where it's like, hey, just a reminder, like, we have our cops out there and they're enforcing, in your area, and this is how they do it, kind of thing. I don't know. It's this weird, like, reminder. Because it's like, why is that show around? Like, why? I don't get it.
Right?
You know what I mean? I really don't. Yeah. And I think one of the cool aspects of this movement in general as of 2020 is police reform is on the table for the first time. Like, I don't remember that in the past. Like, there's always been like, oh, we need, we need bias training and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, I always took that as just they're blowing smoke up our asses. That's stuff that happens behind the scenes that we'll never really see the output of. But like defunding police and, kind of starting from the bottom, rehiring police, and more of a focus on community involvement, mental health, I think is really big. And if you look at like police in Germany, I believe it was Germany or Britain, they don't have guns.
And you're definitely thinking of Britain.
Britain? Okay, yeah, Britain.
When they use the billy stick, is that what it's called? or
Billy stick, yeah, but
like
more
that.
or less though they are non-lethally equipped,
Yeah.
right? Like they might have martial arts training, they might have a billy club, and don't get me wrong, you could definitely do some damage with that. But when y'all, I don't know if y'all have shot guns before, but like when you have a gun, like there is like a feeling of like you can feel that power in your hands. It is an odd feeling.
Yeah.
And I what's that?
I just don't like it. It's not.
Yeah, no, it's really, especially if you like wear it on your hip, and that's why I've never gotten into concealed carry. But I think removing potentially that lethal force from police, that could be a game changer. I really do, and hey, I'm a couch philosopher here. I mean, or an armchair philosopher. I'm not on the streets, and I do train with a lot of police members within our local community, and I'm sure they'd have a thing or two to say about my comment right there, but I don't know. I think that the whole cops thing, changing the outward perspective, but then also in reality, not just reality TV, changing how cops approach situations, right? Because you're not going to approach a situation all like puffy chested and like, oh, let's go. Like, what are you doing when you don't have a gun on your hip, So.
And I want to end with this because I was thinking about my own insecurities and stuff like that. Imagine, seriously, like I'm totally a philosopher. I'm with you, Ray, but I just sit here sometimes, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm afraid to wear shorts because that my legs are blinding when it comes to like ultra light. But I was just thinking how insecure I am about that, even though everybody in my life has told me I'm lucky to be white. Imagine the kind of courage it takes for Black people or any other color to just step out of your house knowing that there's this constant fear and this constant insecurity about the way you feel in your own skin. And just by putting that into perspective, I know I can go outside, wear whatever the heck I want, and people are going to make fun, but they're also not going to look at me as they would somebody of another color. And that's just mind-boggling because I'm terrified, but I'm not as scared as somebody of a different color to go outside and do the same thing.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, Kyle. It's a really good point. Well then, I think we have unpacked a lot in just the hour that we've been talking. And yeah, John, this was a pleasant surprise. I wasn't expecting to speak with you today, but man, it's been really great to get to know you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Yeah. We've definitely gone over the hour, but if you guys are free for another 10, 15 minutes to talk about a little lighter side of life, and how we usually do is just whatever we're into these days, whatever pop culture things we're into, whatever books we're reading, just what rabbit holes we've been through the last couple of weeks that we want to share.
Yeah,
how long has this revamp of the podcast been going on?
Well, this is episode number 2.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, you're
kind of.
Okay.
I guess kind of what we did, and Ray could probably speak more to it, is when we were doing the radio show back at WCU, it was just totally like random, like what was going on in our lives at that
I'm
time.
shocked.
I would say about 60% of the conversations were about Star Wars that always came up in some capacity. But we really did go back and forth from artificial AI to The Mandalorian to what's going on in the Valley. Like, it was just an eclectic array of just whatever piqued our interests just during that hour of our week.
Oh, yeah.
And that's pretty much what it has become. And I think we're intending to keep the podcast version the same, but there's just so much going on in this country right now that we would be remiss to acknowledge and talk about like the things that we should be talking about. And I would still like to dedicate some time to going back to our roots and figuring out just who we are as people and just like expressing ourselves with what rabbit holes we've been down.
Okay, so I got one. You guys are good. Don't laugh. Don't laugh.
I'm gonna
Okay.
laugh.
I'm a huge fan of Glee. Okay, huge,
Hmm.
like huge fan. I'm almost done with all 6 seasons, right? But it's just funny rewatching that show as an adult and not as a teenager, because as a teenager you're kind of just oblivious to some of the things because you're like, oh, that's not me. Like that's not the person I was or who I am, you know. But as an adult, you're watching it. And it's so funny. You get hooked immediately because you're like, wow, like this portrayal of high school is actually not wrong. You got people getting pregnant.
I don't know what high school you went to. I didn't have any singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wish it was. Like, I wish I could just, you know, I was watching it and I was just looking at this as if even actors and actresses doing that in front of that many people is like the most like animalistic display of like confidence and like just believing in something that you're good at.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow, just watching this was kind of funny because I'm like, yeah, I almost got a girl pregnant in high school. Oh yeah, I did a bunch of drugs. Yeah, I had a pool cleaning business, you know? And it's just like, it was just funny how I'm watching it and I'm just like really seeing it. And it's kind of great. And I mean, everybody can talk crap about whatever they want, but I'm a proud Glee fan.
Glee fan?
Glee fan. But that was just the rabbit hole I've been going into. I've literally watched 4.5 seasons in a span of 2 weeks.
I've always been astounded by like really niche pockets of like hobbies. Like I am so envious of people who LARP. I think that's so cool, but I do not have the confidence to dress up as a knight and go out in broad daylight and play with toy swords. Like I can't do it. You know what I mean? And I've always been envious of people like that. Like even the people who go to like the Star Wars premieres, right? Because I think John is also a huge sci-fi nerd. Yeah. Or no, you should do. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. Like, you know, I know there was the one Conan O'Brien Triumph, the insult dog or whatever. He goes to like the Star Wars thing. Yeah. It's so funny. But at the same time, I'm like, man, like I would love to go do that. I just don't have the stones to. I think going off Kyle, off your point, like there's like I like it, animalistic confidence because it's like so in your face.
Yeah.
It's like I can laugh at them, but at the same time it's like, really, like can I? Like they're definitely on a different tier of living.
Are you brave enough to duct tape up a styrofoam sword and come up with a character and go to a completely new realm, a different dimension with other people? Are you brave enough to do that?
You know what was a huge.
But you know what's so interesting is it's like that culture is almost polar opposite to you because like you have the confidence to engage in a conversation, engage in a dialogue, and just be your extroverted self. And again, I'm not speaking for all LARPers. I know a lot who are also like that, but a majority of that community is they find solace in this world that they've created because they don't feel welcomed or accepted to this world. They feel like this reality is not for them, so they've created their own.
Yeah.
And instead of judging these people, we should just ask why they do it.
I would never judge.
Dude, I think there's some
I'm the
serious.
kind of person where I need to engage in that activity before I need to judge. I need to walk a mile and
exactly.
before I can say anything.
Oh, dude,
and it's why that. Sorry, Ray, but it's why that should bring us together. Because they're doing it for the same reason. Like I would play basketball or I would play golf or anything like that. They just, like you said, feel at home doing something that people may not like, and that's just badass. Like that shows real badassery. Like if some guy like beat me up with the foam sword, I would be like impressed.
That happened to me.
Moves, dude, you got skills.
Well, yeah, like you got skills, and then I just ask. I'd be like, why do you do this? And the most just joyful way of just wanting to actually know why.
Yeah. I think there's some serious life lessons that can be garnered from the like people who are that. I don't know. I definitely get the negative side of it. Like, yeah, you have to create your own world because society doesn't accept you.
Yeah.
But
and again, that's not everybody. But
yeah, no, totally. But it isn't all like roses and like all that. But I definitely look at those people and was like, they seem genuinely happy when they're doing it. And it's like, why am I not doing that? So I mean, I did reevaluate myself. By the way, I did get my ass kicked by a LARPer too. And he broke my thumb. He broke my thumb. Coulter.
Man.
Coulter broke my thumb.
Never forget.
No, he hit me so hard with that thing. Yeah, I thought it was going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to like, lightsaber fight.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I made one move and it was like, bop! And he hit me right on the flat part of my thumb and broke it. Ooh. Straight up broke my thumb. 2 summers ago. Yeah, because I like dropped the sword and I was like, dude, I think you broke my thumb. It's like, yeah. No, there's he gets into like the historical reenactments and stuff. Oh, so like he's like produced his own armor and like he has like the straw padding, underneath like the chainmail and stuff. And yeah, it's a whole nother, you want to talk about a rabbit hole. That's a life rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, seriously. Have you guys seen the movie Role Models? With
yes.
Paul Rudd and Sean Scott, where they have a Big Brother program who they need to, one of the kids is a LARPer.
Isn't it McLovin?
It is McLovin. I can't remember his actual name, but yeah, McLovin from Superbad is in that movie as one of he is the LARPer in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good movie. Paul Rudd at his best. Paul Rudd nails it in that movie.
And Sean William Scott.
Sean William Scott always kills. He plays the exact same, like, look at me, the dude bro gets all the girls character, and perfect typecast. He nails that role every time.
Yeah.
I just think of him in Evolution going, caw, caw, like.
Dude, Evolution is criminally underrated. I love that movie.
Not familiar with it.
Look at it. I think it's still on Netflix. I think it's still on Netflix. It's
a cult classic now.
It's definitely a cult classic. It's a
show or movie.
I'm sorry?
Show or movie?
Movie.
It's a movie.
Pretty sure it was like 2000 or 2001. Quintessential alien movie, meteor lands, alien life form, but they evolved at an alarmingly rapid rate. Like a microorganism goes to a like sentient, almost ape-like character in less than a week. So, and the government's trying to conceal it, and you got Sean William Scott and so many. I can't remember the name of the actors that are in it. It's been so long since I've seen it, but yeah, Evolution.
David Duchovny, I think.
See, my favorite Sean William Scott role is from Old School.
Oh, dude, Old School.
Oh, wait, is it Old School?
Yes!
Yeah, no. That's awesome. When he gets the trank gun right to the elephant tranquilizer.
You're crazy.
You're crazy.
I like you, but you're crazy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, man. Yeah, no, that's
so funny.
There was something.
All right, let's hear about John's rabbit hole.
My rabbit hole. I have been watching Star Trek, actually.
I was going to say, out of context, that could sound really bad. Let's ask about John's rabbit hole.
At least it wasn't Sasha's rabbit hole. Yeah.
So close that I even used the word. You consider yourself lucky, viewers. I used the word rabbit. I wasn't about to.
John, tell us about your hole.
Oh my gosh. See, I am loving this right now.
So we were on like an we were on like an hour-long streak of professionalism, and then I botched it all up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
If it wasn't clear, I have not met Kyle or. Do you go by William or Will, by the way?
Will's fine. I go by either or. I'll answer.
Okay, cool. Haven't even met them in person. So.
Player's choice on that one.
Great conversation. But anyway, my rabbit hole recently is I've been watching Star Trek because Ray knows very well that I know Star Wars pretty well, but I've never really tried the deep dive into Star Trek, and I am getting into it. And I think, honestly, there's a lot of good social justice topics and issues and comparisons, and just thinking about alien species and different perspectives, and like cultural appropriation, and respecting different cultures and their values and beliefs. So I think that's honestly pretty relevant to any time, but especially the times that we're in right now.
If I'm not mistaken, the first televised interracial kiss was Star Trek.
Between Uhura and Kirk, right?
Kirk.
Yep.
Yeah, Kirk.
Definitely. John, have any of you seen The Orville, Seth MacFarlane? The Orville? It is a Star Trek parody. So it's Seth MacFarlane, so it's just a comedy spin-off of Star Trek, and I think it's absolutely hilarious. It's got that very quintessential like Seth Rogen wit. So it's like, if there was a live-action Family Guy that was also a Star Trek parody. That's kind of what we're watching, and it hits every time. And they talk about a lot of similar things. There's actually one episode where they find a world where the society is run, their opinion of people is run completely on social media. They have like a name tag on their chest where you can literally, there's like an arrow up and a red arrow down, and you can rate people. And there's what they call the feed. And the feed has like a running tally on like thumbs up and thumbs down.
Oh, dang.
There's one scene where there's like an older woman. She has like you can add by context a significant number of thumbs down, and they refuse her service to this coffee shop. And the woman's like, this is from my 20s. I'm a different person. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, no, I don't have to serve you. Goodbye. I was just like, for something that's trying to be just like a parody, like comedy, like that's kind of a real topic to like be discussed, at least I think.
Hey guys, to quote Ogre, nerds.
Quote Ogre?
Ogre.
Revenge of the Nerds, dude. Have you not seen Revenge of the Nerds?
Never seen it.
Oh,
I know.
That's a classic. Oh my goodness.
I've heard that a lot today. Oh, it's a cult classic. Oh man. Yeah, no, I'm the original Star Trek. I've never finished like all of it, but it is you could see the parallels between like what was going on in society with the civil rights movement and like so
no, definitely.
And still very much related today.
Yeah. Also, William Shatner is just a hysterical actor.
His overacting is like what makes the show. It's like it's like he never remembers his lines. He like stops mid-sentence.
I live my life actually like William Shatner.
William Shatner gives me hope that I could maybe one day make it to the silver screen. Like you just overindulge in all your lines and you'll be good to go.
I think he's cornered the market on it. But keeping with the theme of Star Trek parodies, have you all seen Galaxy Quest?
Yes.
With
I have
that's
seen that one.
Tim Allen, right?
Tim Allen, yes. So there is actually a documentary about that movie on Amazon. I have Amazon Prime, and it was free to watch there. And it was a documentary about that movie and how it's basically the most meta movie ever.
I was just about to say meta.
The opening credit scene, the opening scene is them at a convention, and it's like the characters have to get into character at a convention with fans that they know that they're parodying, and that there has to be footage somewhere of William Shatner arguing with Leonard Nimoy about, I don't want to go out there again. I don't want to do this again. These fans are out there and I love them. They're my livelihood, but come on. Like, I never really realized, because my family has watched that movie. I'm pretty sure we saw it in theaters. It was one of those, like, if it was on TV, we'd always have to watch it. Like, I've loved that movie for so long, and I never really thought just how meta it really was. And then, like, this documentary is about, like, the filming of it. They talk about, like, the legacy of Alan Rickman as it, too, as an actor. Like, it's just really good. So that's just a deep, deep dive down this particular rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's always the downside to stardom, is that you get locked in. You get locked in
Just
kind of a loop.
You all right, Kyle?
Oh shit! I'm so sorry, Ray.
What?
My special guest roommate
Is that Caleb?
I'll have him put away his paraphernalia real quick. But no, he's working for Res Life too. He's a good kid. But,
okay.
Who is
but
it?
he was just doing something so outrageously stupid, that guy. but oh my goodness. Oh, nice. I'm so sorry, Ray. Please.
Oh, it's all good. No, I was gonna say that's always the downside to stardom, though, is that you get stuck in a loop, and people just want you to regurgitate what they know you for and not change. You know.
It's almost like, could you imagine being a musician that has a one-hit wonder?
No, seriously.
Like
or even even you have a couple good albums.
Like
that's all you play the rest of your life.
Yeah, just one song, like Hotel California.
Yeah.
Like
no,
that is the band that they have to play Hotel California. They probably hate that song.
Yeah.
They probably hate it.
I always think about that, you know, like you make it big and then it's just like you're trapped in time, you know? People just want this like, I don't know, mirage that you're like that person and that you're unchanging, you know, and it's some weird form of stability and connection for them, you know. That's why it pays to be the underdog like us.
So speaking on what happened, actually, I had a revelation in my mind this weekend, you know, those weekend vibes. But I'm sorry, this is going to be a little bit of adult humor because it's just funny. We just got to look at humanity and understand this is a world full of cucks. That's what it is. And that just happened to me and to Ray because he interrupted something you were saying, and then I interrupted something.
Sounds like some Team America rhetoric right there.
Team America World Cucks. That's what it is.
There you go.
Well, that's going to be the title of this video.
Please no.
Please don't do.
Be surprised, honestly, Kyle. You'll be surprised if I don't cut this out completely.
Oh no! Don't be.
We're just gonna be mid.
I'm kidding. Unfiltered. Filtered.
So you're gonna cuck me out of cucking?
But you got him.
That is meta right there.
That is an hour and a half setup for that punchline.
Yeah. It's been brewing.
Oh my goodness.
Well, hey. I think I have not eaten dinner yet, so I am getting actually. The fish came. I did make fish, and it did come out of the oven right as we started. Yeah, I was like, I can't pull a Nathan.
Well, here in Connecticut, it's 10:30, so it's definitely my bedtime. So
night.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, listening, and watching our content. This has been a really good episode. John, thank you so much for
John.
I honestly, like, that caught me totally off guard. I had no idea you were going to show up.
Who's in the lobby?
I was like John?
Right, did you tell him?
I thought I texted him I texted it in the group.
Mentioned him. You mentioned you were talking to him, but you didn't.
Yeah, but he wasn't.
Oh, my bad.
Nah.
I thought I said I talked to John.
That's okay.
Just
John,
another C word that just happened, Ray. You just did it.
John, we appreciate your interview for the podcast. You'll be replacing Ray shortly.
Yeah. I'm good. When I'm off the grid, fill John or keep me on via John.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you saw, remember to like, comment, and subscribe and stay tuned for more content. Have a good night, everyone.
Peace.